All
Hello.
right, all right, all right. Hello, everybody. My name is Clinton Mansfield, and this is the Provoke Coach podcast. I have a special guest with us today. A younger, wonderful young woman that really kind of got me going with doing these podcasts a little bit. I want to introduce somebody that introduced me to a network of people, and this network of people are the Circle of Champions, and this is a group that I have been able to kind of rub shoulders with some really, really, really incredible people. Okay, and I get to watch them, I get to follow them, I get to listen to them, and they help motivate me. And so here I have this young woman that has really kind of brought all that together. I will let you introduce yourself.
That's what I do too on the hot seat.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
so if this is the first time we meet, guys, my name is Sarai Nammur. I'm a licensed mental health counselor in the state of Florida. And I'm also the founder of Trinity Community Mental Health Center right here in Miami Lakes, Florida, and Circle of Champions Worldwide, which is a nonprofit dedicated to providing education on positive mental health. And that's sort of like the flip side of Trinity, because Trinity, we're a trauma-informed agency. So in Trinity, we do trauma work. And even if you come in here not thinking that we're going to deal with trauma, we end up dealing with your unresolved traumas. And then Circle of Champions is the other side, is like people who have overcome trauma. Hey, Oki, it's for people who have, basically champions. And you're a champion too. That's why you were on my podcast as well. So those of us that have managed to turn our pain into our purpose, we become champions for others. First, we do it for ourselves, and then we do it for others. So that's who I am.
So talk to me, I guess, a little bit about the group. You started something that is, it's a nonprofit, so it's totally something that is giving back to the community. It's giving back without a monetary thought process behind it, right? Or, like how much money can we make? Instead, it's how many lives can we change?
Right.
And what kind of difference and impact that we can make, because everybody that is a part of the Circle of Champions, you're right, they, in one way, shape, or form, they've been able to become a champion, but, through hard work, dedication, but then again, provoking moments that may happen in their life to be able to go forward. So, I guess what made you decide to come up with this?
Okay, so like I said, so first I've been a therapist for 21 years, and throughout my entire professional career, I've worked with foster kids and people who have experienced trauma and substance abuse. The majority of the people who have substance abuse issues, I forget the percentage, but like it's in the high 96, 97% of the people have experienced childhood trauma. So I worked so long with that. And then I started learning more about positive psychology, and which has to do with greatness. It has to do with the psychology of success, the psychology of greatness, the psychology of like the post-traumatic growth. And I really became I fell in love with that. I was really interested in that. I really love leadership. And most people who are in leadership are also people who have overcome things. So if you wrap it all up, I wanted to create a program that was for like adolescents and catch them at that age and teach leadership to these kids. And then it sort of evolved. And then basically December, it was sitting with me, and I didn't want to disrupt what I had going on at Trinity, because at Trinity, we've been here for 14 years and we're very stable, and we're a for-profit agency, but we do impact lives regardless. We work with foster kids and parents who are trying to get them back, and just anyone we're a community mental health agency. So it's basically anyone in the community that wants help, they could come here. And even though we're for profit, for people who don't have insurance, we have a very low fee. And we also have a sliding fee scale for people, and I've done many pro bono as well. So we are open I believe everyone should receive services if they really want it. But I just got more and more interested in positive psychology and greatness, and I started realizing the link between trauma and success, and trauma and greatness. And I started realizing that it's really the other side of the same coin. Like, I haven't seen real true success, leadership, greatness without first having that pain at the beginning, or that trauma, whatever word you want to use to describe it. And I really noticed that the steeper the fall, like the steeper the dip of how far your hard time was, the higher you could actually elevate yourself. And most of the time, our purpose is wrapped in our pain. Like, when I had you on my podcast, I saw it in you, myself. Like, the reason why I have an agency, the reason why I'm a therapist, is because everything I went through growing up as a child. So that's where our purpose is birthed from our let's call it an overcompensation for what we went through. At some point you say, this is never going to happen to me again, or I'm never going to allow it to happen to anyone, or whatever story you tell yourself, it gives birth to that purpose that you have. And then I sort of think, like, you deliver that birth. I mean, you birth you deliver that purpose through your gift. So my gift is putting people together. And my gift is, recognizing what's great, what people have that's great. And that sort of birth Circle of Champions Worldwide. It became putting all the people together and then recognizing who's great at what. And if you look in there, most people, like, we have Raymel, Raymond, Carrie, like, so many people that are just with you, like, all your lives and everything. You are showing up for all the people who don't have a voice, which I think I love it.
Yeah.
It's so incredible.
Well, and I think that I think that you're right. And I think that, it's good to know, right? I think even for the people that are listening, and even for the people that will listen later to this, is that even know life has a way of just knocking you to your knees in some way, shape, or form. Like you said, trauma, whatever you want to call it, whatever has been essentially a provoking moment in your life, whether it was forced, right, and it was put upon you, whether you liked it or not, or whether things happen, traumatic, issues take place throughout everybody's life. But those are those things that, like you said, like, sometimes if you get hit hard, when you come back even harder. What is it about that? What is it about, I guess, where you kind of were, you were connecting these two? Because you're right, you went for a more clinical state, I guess, with your practice, right? And in a lot of cases to a different way, of providing value. Where did that come from? I mean, let's dig into that a little bit more, because do you feel as though that people that have these things in their life, do you think they come back with, like, this, and I don't want to, call it a superpower, but a unique ability to influence others with their story? I mean, is that what it is?
I think we all could do that. Does everybody choose to do that? No, it depends on your mindset. It depends on the meaning you give to your experiences. I actually talked about this yesterday. So, like, growing up, I always wondered, like, why did I have to witness certain things that were happening, and why did I have to go through so much? And so that's a victim mentality, like, to think, why me? Why this? Why that? And of course I was, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, because it was all the years, it was all those years. I lived in 17 houses by the time I was 18. And I saw a lot of things, and I saw my brother go through a lot of things. And then he actually became the person who was antagonizing me. And it was just crazy. So with witnessing all of that, at some point I realized there's a purpose behind that, but it depends on the meaning. So at first, my meaning was, why me? Which is a horrible question. That's only going to lead to a really bad answer. But when you flip it around and when you say why me, you're giving up your power. But we all have the option of grabbing our power and going, you know what? Why me? Because I have to do something with this. And my something was becoming an impact on others, a positive impact on others. And I thought, like, I have to save people. I have to help people see their greatness. And if I had to sum what I do, it's not even therapy. I just help people see what's great in them. I hear people talk and I push aside everything, all the stuff you're telling me negative about yourself. I push that aside and then I say, yes, but you have this. And I could hear your strength, or I could hear whatever it is. So if it's one thing I could do is that even in therapy, that's what I do with people. And some clients get mad at me. Some clients are like, man, I can't tell you, like, I won't join the pity party, because I'm like, yeah, but all that happened because, and I flip it. So I have an ability to do that, probably because I was able to do it for myself. But it also takes leadership, because it takes leadership to say that. And like, my agency is not I don't have a private practice. This isn't private practice. I have an agency, and I've had many therapists working with me, and they still work with me. And so basically, by creating my agency, I became a leader in the industry and in Dade County, because we are trauma informed, and not all agencies are trauma informed. Not all therapists are trauma informed, and it makes a huge difference to understand that. And that's just my personal philosophy too, just because of my life, and also with what I've seen of people coming in. There might be people that walk in and say, oh, I'm coming here for depression and anxiety, and they're like 40 years old. And then I ask the trauma questions, because as a trauma-informed agency, we ask trauma-informed questions, which are like, I want to know what your exposures to trauma have been. And when we scratch the surface, we realize, yes, you never talked about this. You never talked about being sexually abused by your father for 5 years. You never talked about having to cross from Nicaragua to the United States in 30 days walking. You never talked about that. Of course you feel the way you feel. So it's very validating for people to hear that. So I don't know.
And you think that, with you, getting the Circle of Champions started, do you think that it showed you a different way to coach and to help people? Do you think that what you've learned with Circle of Champions has been different then? I mean, you had a 14-year practice, and, here you are doing something a little bit less clinical, right? And totally giving, something that, is a nonprofit, but, almost 10 times the amount of gratefulness that you receive and gratitude, that you get from something like this. Why the shift? Did you need that for yourself?
Well, that's a really good question, because, for example, I always say, like, what changed my life, which was in my 30s, what changed my life was in therapy. Even though I had been to therapy like maybe 3 times in my life, in my adult life, it wasn't, what changed me was personal development. So personal development, meeting Tony Robbins, really like studying his work and going to his events transformed me. So for me, I've sort of smushed both sides, because I think both sides are necessary. I think healing is the first component. I think that's the most important piece. Is there's some therapists believe, hey, we don't even need to go to your background. We don't even need to go into your childhood. Let's change your thoughts now. And that's CBT. Cognitive behavior therapy is 100% about now. Like, what are you thinking now? How is that triggering your emotions and your behaviors? But I don't necessarily believe in that. I believe, that's important, but we do need to face the back end, and we need to unlock some of the meanings you have given to these things that are even meanings about yourself. I deserved it. I'm not worthy. I'm not good enough. Whatever things you have repetitively tell yourself that you're not even aware that you're saying. So I believe healing is very important. And then the transformation part is like growing and learning new skills. Even, for example, I'll give you an example. If you grew up in a home where you had a dysfunctional adults, you had adults parents that didn't get along well, disrespected each other, or whatever, things like that, you never really had good role models. So once you do your healing, you actually have to learn and read some books on relationships, communication styles, and all this stuff, because you could even be a therapist who ends up having kids or a relationship where you're doing the same disrespect because you never took the time to learn, even though you have a master's degree. Like, you have to learn parenting. I was going down the wrong pathway I have a 24-year-old and a 20-year-old, and I was going down the wrong path with them too. I was applying things I had learned, and then my kids telling me how they felt was like, ooh, and it got me to see like I'm doing the same thing I said I was never gonna do. So we have to learn skills, even though like our IQ and our education doesn't mean that we have learned the skills that we need for to live like at a high level, especially if we didn't have the role models. Did that answer your question? I don't even know if that really answered your question.
Yeah, and it did. I mean, it gives me more questions, I guess, but definitely an agreement, because I think that, it does answer my question, because people with imposed demand, right? I use this a lot, because of my, fitness background. We talk about breaking muscles down in order for you to repair them and build them up, so they're stronger, so they work better, the whole 9 yards. And that's really kind of the same concept, is that in life is going to break you down. There is going to be imposed demand. There is going to be, pain, right? And it's a good pain that allows you to grow. But I just think that, sometimes when you go through traumatic issues in your life, whenever that may be, I think that in a lot of cases you build up this immunity and this thick skin to where some things don't get a rise out of you like normal, right? To where you're like, yeah, whatever.
That's true.
I mean, I know that I felt that way at the beginning, as I'm soul searching, as I'm, like you said, handling issues that maybe I went through as a kid, that you build up such a thick skin that you kind of blow right past them. And then pretty soon, before you know it, it's been like eating at you on the inside, and then you must fix that, but that's interesting that you say that. So I think people grow, and I think people adapt, but I think there are certain people that take it to the next level, like yourself, right? So I want to kind of, rewind and fast forward kind of at the same time. I know that you have a family. Tell everybody, I mean, how many kids do you have? Husband, let's talk about life here for a second. Can't just be business. Talk to us about that.
All right. Well, I mean, I'm married. I have a 24-year-old. I have a 20-year-old son. I was married to their dad for, I would say, about, I think it was 13 years. And then I met my current husband, Abraham, and we've been we've been together for 16 years. Guys, I'm 51 years old, almost 52. A lot of people are like, when did you start? And I'm like, I'm
when did you start? When you were 13? Yes. Wow. Well, you look fantastic for your age. That's awesome.
Thank you.
So you've
but yeah,
so I'm built, so, and then you have younger one, right?
Yeah, and then I have how could I forget her? Then I have my 8-year-old, which is with Abraham, my husband. I have an 8-year-old, and she's like mini me 100%. Like I watch her, and it's incredible because she even does the noises I make, like quirky things. She's funny,
right?
But something really, really, I wanted to. Could I point out one thing that you said was so good? You said like we grow such thick skin, and that is so true, because just because we're able to take it doesn't mean we should. And
you're right. Well, you're right. And that was kind of why I was asking about your family, because, certain things that I think people need to hear out there is that, it doesn't matter how much you can teach somebody and you can open up their eyes about their own lives and start to connect and really start to move things in the right direction, right? Because you've been doing this for, quite some time now, to where you're helping people, whether it was, from, a very traumatic, situation in their life, to clinically getting them moving in the right direction, to also coaching and really, I mean, I don't know if anybody's got a chance to see your website, but it's awesome. You guys do a lot for the community. You have a family. How do you separate, I guess, being, super mom, right? Therapist slash coach in life and marriage and everything, and still juggle it all, because I find that amazing. I mean, that's why you're on the show, because you're not just good at business, you're good at other things in your life too. Can you talk about that for a second? Because I think that's important for people to know.
So I got to give credit where credit is due. I mean, I started the agency not by myself. My husband and I did it together. And so he's in here just as much as I'm in here. And actually, even this year, he's been here more than I have. And ever since I started Serving Champions, he's probably doing, I would say, 75% of the work, and probably I've done less. Awesome. But we started Trinity in 2006, I think it was. I think it was 2006. And we would be here all the time. My kids were when we first started. I had a side office with a bed and whatever video game it was at that time, and whatever it was. And my kids would be playing. They were little. They were 7, 8. You know, they were little, and they'd be playing. So this is a family thing happening here. So that's why I'm able to do it. Because otherwise, I probably wouldn't be married, and I probably wouldn't have kids, because having a business requires about 15 hours a day, at least 15 hours a day of work, 15, 60 hours a day of work. And so my kids, they would get out of school, pick them up, they'll come to the office, and they'll be with us the whole entire time. And that's really, like, entrepreneurship. It's cool because, it's you have control over it, but it doesn't mean it's less work. It's harder work. It's actually harder work. So that's
what I mean. I guess you've been able to do this, successfully, because I see your kids, they're all, they're doing well, especially the older ones, the younger one, cute as a button, husband looks awesome. Now I know, I guess, a little bit deeper, because I never really asked before, how is it done? But you guys have something that is shared, and you guys have something that means something. And that's, really, that's the power, that's the superpower. So how do people get it? Where does this come from? Can we go back in time a little bit to, how all this started? I mean, how did you grow up? I mean, what provoked you, I guess, throughout the way? Because, as you and I have talked about in the past, is that there are provoking moments in your life that kind of turn things. And they turn dials throughout life, and we go in whatever direction that is, right? But, how did it end up all here? Because you're awesome, it's going great, but I'm sure it always didn't.
Right. No, it really didn't. So growing up, I always say that we are an extension. The story didn't begin with us. A lot of people try to, when people speak, it sounds like the story began with me and this is what happened to me. But we're just an extension of a very long story. The story began with our parents, their parents, and so on and so forth. So my parents my mom is from Cuba, my dad is from Ecuador, and my parents met here. And I would say that my dad wasn't happy to move to this country because he lived better in Ecuador, and there was a reason why the family came over here, and he sort of seemed like to not have an option and come over here. And for a long time, I would say he was probably very bitter and angry. And so we felt the backlash of that, of anger and bitterness. And for a long time, it was that. And then my brother was also someone that was very difficult to live with. And I was talking about this yesterday, he was very abusive to me, and I had to learn how to fight him off. And he just passed away last year, 2020. But the last 2 years before he passed away were probably the best years we really had, because even though I loved him and I always wanted to protect him and I always wanted to save him in my own way, he really was someone who was very, very abusive to me, like physically abusive. And I even left my house for that reason. My son's father, I only knew him 9 months before we got married, and I saw him as my ticket out. Like I was like, I'm leaving. We're in California, and I lived in California, I lived in Kansas, and that's when I came back. But I had to remove myself from the situation because I was going to end up arrested for fighting him or doing something. Like something was going to happen because it was truly a domestic violence situation. Like imagine like a husband and a wife. He and I would fight. Like it was domestic violence, and he was a year younger than I am. But he's a tough guy, man. My brother was very people were scared of him. People were so scared of him that if someone saw me out in the street, they'll come up to me and they'll go, "Is your brother here?" And I'll go, "Yes" or "No." If I said no, they're like, "Okay, let me say hi to you really quick," and they'll leave. That's how scared they were of him. And I lived with him and was getting beat up by him. So you know, he had his own stuff happening, but all of that made me like all that instability and everything that, you know, that I grew up, the way that I grew up, I just wanted to help other people, basically like me, people like me, to say, hey, you know what, you could still create great things. Your life is worth it. And that's what I've done ever since. I could tell you, and it wasn't easy. It's not easy. I think I spent my entire 20s probably crazy. Like, even though it looked good on the outside, I was going to school. I got married at 21, left to California. I was going to school. I was getting my degree. I had Brandon, my first son, my 24-year-old, or I don't even know, 23, 24. I had him at 27. So it looked good on the outside. It's like, man, Sarai's got it going on. She has a master's degree. She has this, she has that, you know, but I was not okay. I was dealing with panic attacks. And it was very difficult for me to cope because I hadn't healed yet. I hadn't healed any of parts of me yet. And then it wasn't until like probably my early 30s that I started really facing things. Because if you've gone through serious trauma in your life, things that you want to push away, because if you look at it's overwhelming. If anyone out there knows what this feels like, if you know what an overwhelming emotion feels like, you try to avoid that emotion at all costs. If that means lying to yourself, doing drugs, escaping in any way, you will do anything to escape that emotion of feeling like you're so overwhelmed or you're panicking that you just can't take it. I don't know how else to describe it, but anyone out there listening, that feels like you will. I was talking about this weekend to I think it was with Billy and all of us talking at the table. Jeremy, Billy, and Barry, we were all talking, and we're talking about panic attacks because Billy's story has to do with he had panic attacks for 7 years and was trapped in his house for 7 years. But I was the type of panic attack that I don't trap myself. I'm the type of panic that I'll pick up and grab my purse and drive and take myself who knows to another state. You know, I would. I'm a runner. It will make me run. But all of that, like I think all of those experiences, everything I saw, everything I went through, even the aftermath, which is dealing with my own emotions, were all things I had to go through so that I could be someone who speaks about this. So I could be someone who gives my testimony and says, hey, you know what, even though I had that and I felt that way, I have overcome those things because those things don't happen to me right now. Like I'm not saying I'm perfect. I'm not saying I don't have bad days because we all have bad days. But once you raise your baseline of being able to cope with things, normal stress doesn't affect you in the same way. If your baseline is all the way down here, you haven't done any healing, then you could just add a drop of stress and you're in a panic attack. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Well, and that's because, not only, are your stress levels at like the top, but you're not doing anything usually positive at that point, right? Because, I'm the type that, I really do start shutting down, right? Like when I get stressed, I'll do stuff, but I have to shut my brain off. I have to do the most physical thing that I can possibly find. And I mean, it doesn't matter what it is. I'll rearrange the house, I'll clean, I'll go outside and do yard work and the whole 9 yards, but I think that, you're right. I mean, people, you do have to deal with your own healing and you do have to come to, fruition with, the things that have been holding you back. But I think you're right. Like there is an element of pain that needs to take place, I think, for somebody to be great at helping those people with that pain, right? And really growing from that situation. And I think that, you know, let's keep going, I guess, throughout that process. Now, you know, you're educated, right? You have your master's degree. It, again, you, like you said, it looked phenomenal from the outside looking in. You know, she's got her shit together. Everything is good. Where did things shift, I guess, and where did things change to where it was what it, I guess, has become now?
All right. So, like I said, in my 20s, I was doing all the right things, and I think that was an overcompensation for how wrong everything was growing up. So I was trying to, you know, we say, like, for example, let's say you have a parent that's terrible, and then you're like, I'm never gonna be like my mom, or I'm never gonna be like my dad. Well, I think my mind registered, I'm never gonna. I need a safety and stability. So with all the lack of safety, I needed to create safety. So my brain decided that the way I'm going to create safety is by getting a degree and not needing anyone for anything. Because I was the type of person, you know, I grew up in Hialeah, so I was the type of person that I was like, I was born alone, I'll die alone. Like, that's what came out of all that I went through, was like, no one, you know, I was like total Hialeah girl. And you know what that is? That's why you're laughing.
Yeah, so I do know what that is.
Alone, I don't need you. And I had this whole attitude going on, which was a facade, by the way. It was like this whole thing, but I try to play it out by getting my shit together, so that I really could, I wanted to put myself at a place where I really didn't need anyone. And the other side of that is that I was in a marriage that, I would say, 2 years into the marriage, I already knew it wasn't good yet. I lasted 13 years. And by not good, I don't mean just not good. I really wasn't in love anymore. Like 2 years in, it was just like, we were very young, and it wasn't good in that sense. But yet I stayed there because I was so afraid of being alone. I was so afraid of, I don't have it yet, like the way it needs to be. Or, you know, I was so afraid of not having safety. It boils down to safety, stability, because that's exactly what I didn't have growing up. No safety, no stability. But then when I got introduced to Tony Robbins through his CDs, and I started studying his stuff. I don't know if you've done that. Have you gone through his CDs?
Oh yes.
Okay.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
So
Awaken the Giant was, I think, the first program that I did. Yeah.
Okay. So I got stuck on CD4 because CD4 said something. CD4 was said something where it got me to realize I have to leave my husband. So on CD4, you know how he does his CDs? He says, don't do the next CD.
Yeah.
So it took me 2 years to leave. So I never went to CD5 because I'm very obedient. So I'm like, oh man, and so I stood in front of my husband at that time, and I said, this is the beginning of the end. It was my birthday, and I was like, this is the beginning of the end. I put him on notice. It's over, but I don't know when we're leaving, but it's over as of today. And that just switched. Like, that's why I say Tony Robbins changed everything for me, because what I learned in those first 4 CDs empowered me to realize, like, I am creating my life. And the same way I've created my life in a direction that isn't working for me, I could create my life in a way that does work for me. I just didn't have the courage. I said it, but I didn't have the courage to do it for 2 years, basically for 2 years. And he still didn't believe me. And when I did break up with him, he acted like he never heard it before. I was like, I told you years ago. Did you think I was not serious? But that's really the bridge for me wasn't doing 6 years of college. Like, it wasn't for getting my master's. It was truly, I mean, I have to say, this is a good testimony for Tony Robbins. It was really listening to those 4 CDs over and over and over, because that's what I did. I basically memorized them. So that was the bridge for me. That's why I'm so passionate about personal development. And even, like, there's a program that I created now, and it's a blend of what I know as far as trauma and psychology goes, and positive psychology, and everything I've learned through personal development. And I've blended it together because that's what has helped me.
Fantastic. Yeah. Well, and I think that, a lot of people, and you probably get this, a lot. I know that I have been, especially recently, a lot of people they always want to know, testimonies, and they always want to reference, and they always want to, because there's a lot of weird stuff out there. And in the coaching world, right, there's just more and more and more. You see it every single day. And I tell people sometimes, I'm very honest with people, say, look, when you hired me, it was for really more of accountability and where I've been, right? And where I've been able to kind of F up already, so you don't have to. And I guess that's that whole parental type step in, is like, you sacrifice a little bit so your kids don't have to. Now, when raising your kids, I mean, obviously you've built, a safe environment for them. I'm sure that was, the first thing on your list. Do you feel as though that sometimes you in your practice and what you do professionally, does that leak into you raising your kids and communicating with your kids? Because I find that I get challenged with that, sometimes, to where I know the perfect thing to do, but life's not perfect, right?
Right. So that's a tricky question, because I've been a therapist for 21 years, but I wasn't as good at year 1 as I am now. So,
right.
like anything else. So I've learned along the way to get better. So that's why I always say, like, I have a great relationship with my kids, and I am so blessed. Like, my kids are so awesome. Like, they're so, like, any woman that ends up with my boys is going to be so lucky, because I mean, it's not just that they're my kids, they're really, really great kids. But a lot of, I've learned what I have done good. I'll tell you what I've done great. What I've done great is that I've been a great listener, as far as I've allowed my sons to teach me as well, especially my older son. My older son, when at the beginning, or, when he was younger, when I was still carrying on ways that weren't helpful to me growing up, I was carrying on like I'm, screaming like a real Cuban, or blowing up and doing all these things. That's not okay. But I grew up in a way that was pretty violent. I grew up in a way where, like, parenting was violent. So I was like, too. I was starting to do that as well. But my son taught me, because he's very verbal. He's like me. Like, have you noticed I haven't stopped talking? So my son is like me. So he would tell me things, but the good thing I did was I was able to hear it. So I wasn't like, I'm your mom and you shut up. I never did that. He'll talk to me, and I will be like, ooh, and I'll be like, I am doing that, and I don't want to do that. And then I'll say, thank you, Brandon, I'm so sorry. Like, thank you for telling me, because I wasn't aware of it unless you would have told me. So I did a lot of things that were not good, but the one thing that helped me was being able to listen, and being able to say, okay, you're my son, but you could still teach me stuff. And he's been an amazing teacher for me, to where I'm a way better mom with Lilith than I've been with. I mean, of course, like, I had her at 43. So right. But you learn as you go, and there's no perfect parent. Like, that's why I have so much compassion, even for my parents. I have so much compassion for. That's why I say, like, my story is an extension of theirs, but it's also the telling of the story of, I grew up with a very angry father. I grew up with a dad that, I think he just hated even his own life so much that it reflected on us, and how we felt that he felt towards us. But he's a completely changed man, and he's changed. So even seeing him tells me, like, man, people really change. Like, you could find your greatness at any point. My brother, on the other hand, and it's good to talk about this, because that's why for me it's so important to say, when I'm saving lives, I'm not just saving lives physically, I'm saving lives in your soul. Like, that's why healing is important. My brother passed away, and his daughters never saw the greatest person he could have been. They may have seen the worst, but and that's why it's so important to go on a mission. My mission is to help everyone see their greatness, so that they could pass it on, and they could be the light for others, especially for those who are most important to us, which is our family, our kids, and then going forward, right? But who do we most give an impact to is our kids. They're our lineage, and they're the ones that are going to keep on with our story,
Yeah. Well, and what's funny is that, oftentimes people's priorities on what they need to do on a regular basis and on a daily basis. I know that with my clients, I deal with this a lot. One of the first things that I teach is gratitude. And, I do we do our gratitude journal in the morning. I do mine, everybody's kind of on the same page. Well, here's the thing. If the task that you do in your honey-do list, or the things that you prioritize throughout the day, if those don't align with your top 5 things that you're grateful for and that are most important for you in your life, then why are you doing them? Right. And it's just like you said, you've built up this, wonderful culture, at home as well as, with your clients, because you're right. Like, when somebody has to tell you what their challenge is, and if you're not listening, we have 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason, right? That means that we're supposed to listen twice as much as we talk. Right. And, and that's really, really important. Now, talk to me, I guess, about where are you going? What's next? I mean, everything is going great. Wonderful in your family, wonderful in the businesses, and obviously on the Facebook group, Circle of Champions. We did an awesome speaking engagement yesterday in Miami. Probably, hopefully one of very many this year in 2021. What's up next?
All right. So what I really want to do at this state in my life, professionally and personally, because professionally we become something, right? Professionally, I became a licensed mental health counselor, but personally, my mission is truly to save lives. So that's where it becomes not just my profession, it becomes the reason I'm alive. It becomes the reason why I wake up and why I do the things I do. So really, it's what I just said too, which is my mission is to reach as many people as possible, especially those that have actually been through childhood trauma and have experienced generational trauma, and help it stop with them. Like the way I'm trying. I'm not perfect, guys. I'm not perfect at all, but I try as much as I can to help it stop with me. And if I mess up, I have a conversation with my kids to make sure that there's the appropriate meaning is given to circumstances so it could stop with them. It has to stop with me and my kids. You know what I mean? We cannot continue going forward. And so my role in life is to help as many people as possible for it to stop with them. Like, there's a lot of people out there who walk around with a label of, oh, I'm bipolar, or I'm borderline, or I'm this and that. And it's like, okay, have you experienced this and this and this? All of a sudden you find out they have so much trauma in their childhood. And I'm like, okay, is it your diagnosis, or is it that you have unresolved trauma? Because it looks the same way. Clinically, it looks the same. And it really bothers me when people walk around with labels and then if you had a perfect life, then and you're bipolar and all this, okay, then there might be some chemical reaction happening there, some chemical disturbance. But if you have had complex trauma, which is childhood trauma, complex trauma, where you had trauma after trauma after trauma, and never ended, and you went through so much stuff, then you are supposed to feel messed up. That makes you normal. You're not you're not supposed to get hit by a truck and stand up and walk as though nothing happened. But yet we expect kids every day to get sexually abused, to get beat up, to deal with an alcoholic parent, and for this to happen for 10 or 15 years, and for them to wake up every day and be perfect in school. You see my anger, right? So it's not, no. And then we want to go ADHD, bipolar disorder. No.
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree with you 100%, because I think that you're right. Everybody's real label happy, and everybody's really quick to boom. Stress. I mean, even stress and anxiety. I've talked about this even with my daughter, because, she's, grown up and shot up into puberty and into, different parts of her life, that are happening. And dad's like totally on, it's craziness. But we got to talk about things, right? And, you know, hey, she's had friends that she's talked to about anxiety and stress and depression. And I'm thinking to myself, like, what could you kids possibly be stressed out about? Like, you're at home, you know, playing video games, right? And not even going to school, you know, but only part A. But, you know, you do start to understand that it's very quick for them to pick up on these stereotypical labels, you know, that people instantly, oh yeah, you ADHD, yeah, for sure. You know, it's like, what? No, you know, that's not it. You know, let's dig a little bit deeper. Let's figure some things out. But it's also habitual things that take place, right? Like I can tell a big difference, you know, in, you know, my daughter's activity based on how much screen time is allowed, right? You know, when it's in school mode, it's more of this step-by-step, you know, not discipline, but I guess personal discipline that she has to get things done in accordance to homework, you know, school night, times of bed, times of sleep, time eating, you know, these habitual things that are built up over time. That's what creates, you know, maybe things growing up for you and for me weren't as good as what we've been able to provide, this safety, you know, more safety ridden place, but also more habitual. I know with me, I have to tone it back a little bit as a parent because I'm, you know, like, hey, let's do that, you know, like, guess what dad learned today on a new CD or a new podcast? Like, this is what we're going to do, you know? And, you know, sometimes I get a little bit of push like, oh, dad, come on, provoke this, provoke that. You know, do your kids do that too?
Oh, yes. My older son.
Mom, don't psychoanalyze me, Mom. Right?
My son, my 15-year-old, I mean, sorry, my 23-year-old, I kept saying 24, I think he's 23, but he's been working at our agency since he's 15, which is really good because he could talk, he could help you in your marriage right now. He's a therapist, but
that's great.
You know, yeah, he's experienced trauma by reading it over and over. He's read over and over. Sure. I didn't even realize till later. I'm like, man, was that right for me to do? Because he has read so many horrible stories.
Yeah, but you know, honesty with your kids is extremely important, and that's one of the things that my wife and I really try to do is have an open line of communication with our daughter. And as she's growing and as she's being exposed to things that we were not exposed to either, you know, whether it be technology or really the, you know, social media, you know, and really kind of getting her to pay attention to actually what things are, right? When people are, you know, the way that people are dancing on there, what are they doing? Are they seeking attention? Are they just having fun? You know, what do you think? You know, and we'll bounce things off of that, you know, to make sure that, because my wife is a very, you know, she's a very proud, proper woman that, you know, has this, you know, she's just a great role model for my daughter, you know, and I want her to be able to take those same traits. You know, I don't want her to kind of be like her dad with like peeling his shirt off and, you know, drinking and having a good time, you know, like I'm so scared of that. You know, because of, you know, kind of how I grew up, you know, like we spent our 20s and maybe even parts of our 30s really kind of trying to figure ourselves out, you know, to where we want to fast forward, but we want to put the brakes on, you know, especially with our kids, you know. Well, listen, this has been awesome. I know that you and I could probably talk for hours and we wouldn't even know this thing's live, and there'd be people, you know, I see people commenting, you know, all over here. I've been trying to share as much as I could, but such an awesome conversation. You know, everybody does appreciate what you've created. And, you know, look, if you guys are trying to find this woman, she's all over Instagram, all over Facebook. You know, I guess I'll leave it up to you to kind of tell people the exact handles for you and your website as well. You know, of everything. Where can they find you? Where can they follow you and your story even further?
All right. So, I mean, I'm everywhere, the same thing. My name, Sarai Nammur. Elkie, if you could put Sarai Nammur and then people could just see it there. But yeah, I'm Sarai Nammur everywhere. I have a YouTube channel that I started this year, and then I sort of like drew back from it because, you know, I get nervous. I get nervous
of
doing
course.
with talking to someone right next to me, but I got to get back on that. But
Right.
everywhere I'm on everywhere. I'm mostly on Facebook and where Facebook and Instagram, but hopefully I'll get back more into YouTube. And my website is sarainammur.com. Same thing. What else? But that's where you guys could find me, reach me there, DM me. That's pretty much it. By the way, you're great at interviewing, like really great.
Yeah.
I have fun.
Well, you know what? Listen, I mean, everybody knows. Like, look, I mean, I'm gonna give things real, but I got real people, and you know that's what people should realize. And anybody that's just listening to the audio right now, it will be on Spotify, will be on iTunes here shortly as soon as we download everything. You know, remember why we're doing this. I mean, it's really to share, you know, provoking stories of times to where, you know, people have made some pivotal changes and provoking moments in their life, but they've done it in such a way that has really kind of given back to the community. So I really do appreciate so much that you were on my show, and then we'll do it again, and we'll do it again, and we'll do it again, and we'll keep kind of volleying back and forth as we grow, and as we grow kind of our mission together. You know, we're going to do great things. And plus we're here in South Florida. So we're going to really have like a huge event, guys. I'm going to call it right now that we are going to put together like I don't know if you guys have ever seen to where the Avengers are really kind of putting together a team, and they're getting some real, you know, big time champions together.
Totally doing that.
It's gonna be like the Avengers. Okay.
Totally.
You know, but we'll do it here in South Miami. You guys will have to fly in. We'll try to maybe do it during like a colder time of the year. So everybody will have to come down to Miami. They will have to come down and enjoy the weather, and you know, we'll have tons of fun. So I do appreciate you being on our call today. Thank you so much. And hey, we're